All right, we are back in business here on Betting You on Odd Shopper. More college football. One episode is never enough. That's why we do 2 a week now. We're going to get to all the games that we didn't cover. We already got through some of the big time matchups. Honestly, it's not the most stacked week in the world, but these are the diamonds in the rough. These are the games that I think can make the difference on a betting card. Of course, if you're new, welcome. I'm Ben Raza. That's Matt Kajeski, and we're here to talk a lot of college football. You just sent me a list, and it's greasy. There are MAC teams all over it. There's some secondary, Big Ten teams on it. Kind of the cards we're dealt, though, on a week like this.
Yeah, that list is not in order of preference or games I bet or anything like that. So absolutely choose your own adventure with that list, and we can just go wherever you want, really. But the best G5 game is on Friday. So yeah, in these conferences, not quite as enticing, but football's football, man.
Football is football. Betting is betting. Value is value. Here we go. We get it started. Who knows where we're going to end up, but we get it started with Arkansas and Mississippi State. Again, these are the type of teams. Mississippi State, I think it's pretty fair to say, Auburn wants to be the worst team in the SEC. They try to be, but they're not, because Mississippi State actually is. But they're in Starkville here. Arkansas has been better than I think I expected, maybe than you expected. They're a 6-point favorite here, 6.5 at some spots. You want to lay it with the Razorbacks or take the points with the Bulldogs?
They've definitely got more wins than I expected. I don't know if they're better than I expected.
That's fair.
They beat Auburn in a game. They had a 7% post-game win expectancy. They took the corpse of Oklahoma State to double overtime in a game. I mean, there were points of that game where I thought they clearly should have won, and then points of that game where I thought they clearly should have lost. So I don't know. They beat Tennessee, who largely beat themselves. So I really don't know what to make of this team. I do think they're pretty much better than Mississippi State across the board. Mississippi State obviously is on their backup quarterback. They somehow have a worse offensive line than Arkansas, which is pretty hard to do in this conference. These are like the 2 bottom offensive lines you're going to find is these 2 in Vanderbilt. But Mississippi State is 105th in pass blocking, 108th in run blocking. Their backup quarterback has been somewhat dynamic at times, but he's certainly, a backup quarterback for a reason. 53.5% completion, 6.9 yards per attempt. Underlying stuff is decent, not good, not bad. And his receivers are very questionable as well. Speaking of which, Mario Craver, this stud 4-star freshman, might not play in this game. That's a problem for them. Arkansas, they're 101st in defense, so this might not matter. And Mississippi State is 125th in total defense. These are the 2 worst defenses in the SEC, and that includes Vanderbilt. So, I mean, this is pretty greasy overall. Arkansas is 40th in pace. Mississippi State is 8th. I don't really want to lay anything close to a touchdown with Taylon Green. And that Arkansas offense, he's been just as dicey. He has 10 turnover-worthy plays this year. And, I mean, if you just isolate conference play, it's gotten significantly worse. They had the easiest non-con I've ever seen and somehow almost lost to Oklahoma State into it. But now that you're in SEC play, yeah, Mississippi State's not good on defense, but they're certainly better than those teams. The only thing I can really see here is maybe a greasy over, but it's still a lot of points. So I might just stay away from this.
Over is where I looked too. 58.5, I honestly thought it might be a little higher just because these defenses stink.
For sure.
Yeah, it's coming up for sure.
Is that a consensus number? Can you find a 58?
Let me see if I can find a 58. Let's go and see if we can find one. It might be out there, honestly.
I see one offshore.
Okay, let's see. Arkansas. Yeah, there's 58s. Slightly more. Oh, no, there's a 58 at -110. Yep. You can get them. Caesar has it. So
that gives you, like, if you hit, I don't know, 31, like 27. Yeah.
It doesn't, believe me, you think, it won't matter? This? Yeah, I haven't, but
neither have I. But it's
on the shorter
pretty good number for this.
Yeah, I think I may end up on that total. I'm not going to bet a side. I'm just not. I'm not betting Arkansas on the road. That's not happening.
I agree with that.
No. All right, we're gonna keep it moving because we got a lot of weird games to get to, including this one. Honestly, I say this every week, so like you would think maybe I should learn. I really don't know what to make of TCU. They're a 6.5-point favorite at home. Texas Tech at points in this season was super injured. This is just like weird Big 12 football. I don't know, man. What do you make of this Battle of Texas?
Yeah, unfortunately for Texas Tech, they're still pretty injured, and it's largely on defense. They lost a ton of guys for the season, especially up front. And they just lost another one in their most recent game. They're now down Amarian Banks, a defensive tackle. So they're 124th in defense. What I can tell you is I don't think this is getting better. People are just getting more injured for this defense. They're a complete sieve, and it's shown up in recent games. Baylor just scored 59 points on this team. Somehow Arizona only put up 22. I think that speaks more to Arizona than Texas Tech. Cincinnati put up 41 points on this team. Arizona was at 22 points. It was a game they had some injuries. So, I mean, the defense is bad. TCU should absolutely score on this team. They're 56th in total offensive efficiency. The teams are actually tied. They're both 56. But Josh Hoover, the only thing you're really concerned about is turnover-worthy plays. He has 12 of them, and only 6 have been converted to interceptions. But they've been catastrophic for this team and cost them games. Outside of the turnover-worthy plays, he has 12 big-time throws, so he's also making some very impressive passes. 8.5 yards per attempt is awesome. A near 69% completion. He's weird, man. If you just would cut out the 3 plays he has a game that are horrific, this is a pretty good quarterback overall. And he has an awesome skill cast around him, especially at receiver. Batch has been awesome this year. Savion Williams. McAllister, the Boise State transfer, is the wide receiver 4 for this team, which is pretty nuts. They do have some problems on the O-line. They're 99th in pass blocking, 73rd in run blocking. I don't think that matters at all in this particular matchup, with Texas Tech just getting more and more hurt on the defensive line. So this is probably the cleanest he'll be. You hope that helps him take away some of those turnover-worthy plays. So right away, I think TCU hums. Can Baron Morton keep this Texas Tech team in this game? He's been pretty good himself. He's not committing as many turnover-worthy plays as Hoover, so I think that's solid. TCU's strength on defense is their coverage. They're 28th there. They don't really stack up well anywhere else. I guess they could ram it down their throats with Taj Brooks, I suppose. Texas Tech does have the better offensive line. Pace is good in this game. 26th, 15th are the 2 seconds per play for each of these teams. I don't want to take a total. It's way too high.
Yeah, it's high.
But I'm somewhat debating a Texas Tech side. It's probably not something that'll end up on my card, but they do have ways they could score on TCU's defense, which hasn't been very good. They're healthier now, which is pretty solid, I guess. The only player they're missing is Cooper McDonald on the edge. But still, you have a top 50 offensive line in Texas Tech, the 94th ranked run defense in TCU. Can they just keep it close enough? Because TCU is going to score at will, I think.
If it pops to, it's 6.5 everywhere right now. If it gets to 7, is that going to change your opinion? Maybe.
I'd probably need a 7.5, which okay. So that's why this is probably not going to be a bet.
Well, keep an eye on it. Again, we're going to talk about how to get all the information, the closing line value, everything. You talk about it in your daily videos, closing line value, your Discord. We will get there. Don't worry, people. It's a long show. We got you covered. But now we're going, I believe, to College Game Day. Pretty sure. Washington and Indiana in Bloomington.
What?
6.5 points.
This is College Game Day?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. They're there. I also could be just making that up. So let's.
It's I don't know, what? I don't know, the 6th best game on the slate?
Yeah, they're there. Yep.
What? How did they pick this game?
I don't know. I got no answers. Indiana has been awesome, but obviously there's some news. Set the stage for us. Talk about this game because Indiana, they're going to be, and I like Indiana. So when I say this, don't freak out. When they go to Ohio State, they're going to get absolutely smoked. But in the meantime, I hope they stay undefeated. Do you think they stay undefeated?
Tentatively, yes. People are going to talk about the drop-off from Curtis Rourke down to Taven Jackson, which is obviously the most important talking point of this game, losing your all-star quarterback. I mean, he's probably going to be all-conference at the very least, earn some accolade there. I don't know what team he'll be first, second, whatever. But they moved to Taven Jackson, the brother of Trace Jackson Davis, actually. He's pretty young, but in his career, we have a decent sample, 62% completion for 7.8 yards per attempt, 5 touchdowns, 5 picks, 10 turnover-worthy plays, so being converted at about the appropriate rate. Not really that mobile, 25 yards on the ground, but the infrastructure he's playing with is much better than last year. Obviously, this team rehauled their whole team. He's a former 4-star quarterback, and he's a top 250 recruit. So this is not any slouch playing the quarterback position for this team. You would think the talent shines out at some point, especially now that everything is better for Indiana, everything. The offensive line is 14th in pass blocking, 11th in run blocking. Their running back room goes about 4 deep with Ellison, Black, and Lawton. Their receiving game has been elite as well with Surratt. And some of the depth receivers are actually getting it done too. Players like Miles Price. I mean, the infrastructure is just so good. He would have to absolutely face plant to torpedo this offense because they're going to have everything set up for him to succeed, even if it's not quite to the level of what we saw from Rourke. It's just such a good infrastructure. I don't know how you could possibly fail. Then you face the 59th ranked defense. There's certainly ways to exploit this. Honestly, the best way Indiana could just win this game is running the ball right down Washington's throat. They're 86th in run defense. They've had some injuries on the defensive line. They've been without Javon Parker for a while now, who's a rotational defensive tackle. But they're 14th in coverage. I think you should probably just ram it down their throat. I also don't know if we have a large enough sample to really know how good this pass defense is. 5 of the 6 quarterbacks they face, excluding, like FCS teams, are absolutely incompetent. That's Cole Snyder, Jack Lausch, Ethan Kaliak-Manis, Jack Tuttle, and Cade McNamara. So is this pass defense good? I don't know. John Mateer was the player that diced him up the most, and I'm not even sure he can throw. He has a 7.2 yards per attempt on the profile. So Indiana, I'm still thinking moves the ball just fine. And then obviously Rourke doesn't affect their defense, which ranks 5th overall. Jalen Walker played in the last game. I know he had the injury scare 2 weeks ago. That was solid. He's kind of the engine of their defense at linebacker. And they're just continually putting up better and better data points. Their non-con was easy is what it is. But now you've beaten up on Maryland, who just beat USC. You crushed Northwestern, crushed Nebraska, who's had some pretty interesting wins. Limited Rayola to 5.3 yards per attempt. Washington's 30th in offense. They're still the best offense Indiana's faced all season long. But we're starting to stack data points. And it's not just they're doing what was expected. They're outperforming expectations. This team is a covering machine.
6.5 is out there, readily available.
I didn't take it. I don't know that I will. Just you have a lot of volatility going from Rourke to Jackson. I think it'll be fine, but I'm not sure if I'm willing to actually put my money on it.
What about Bowling Green and Toledo? You're in tune with the MAC. It seems like at the very least this is the upper echelon of the conference. Maybe these are the premier teams in the conference. Obviously, Northern Illinois has the best win of the conference, but I saw Bowling Green play some good teams very close, and I saw Toledo cost me a lot of money against Western Kentucky. This is a 3-point spread. What the hell's going on in this game? Toledo is a slight favorite.
That was such a frustrating game.
Yes, it was.
Delayed for 7 hours. I fell asleep. And Toledo had it in hand at that time and somehow found a way to lose. But yeah, the MAC is my favorite conference. Maybe the Sun Belt. I don't know. Those are my 2 favorite conferences, but including the P4. But this conference is all over the place. Northern Illinois has had a ton of injuries, so they've kind of taken a little step back, which is very sad for them. They've lost their 3 best offensive players. Not sure when they'll be back. Bowling Green has a absolute juggernaut of an offense led by elite players like Harold Fannin. They are a little bit thin at wide receiver. Malcolm Johnson played just limited snaps in their last game. You're not going to find reporting on this conference. So anytime you see that, I just flag these guys from injuries, and then a lot of times that's what it is. But Basilik's been awesome. He has a near 70% completion, 8.1 yards per attempt, only 5 turnover-worthy plays. And the O-line has not been treating him very well. They're 89th in pass blocking, 111th in run blocking. It is the Basilik Fannin show. And I think people forget, this is a former SEC transfer down in the MAC, and he's finally showing it. Their defense is pretty bad, though. They're 74th in total defense, 85th against the run, 60th in coverage. They're not really strong anywhere. 2 of their edges have been out. Hardeman hasn't played yet this year, and Ali Saad was out for a big portion of their last game, which is a concern for me facing Toledo, who's actually gotten better play out of their backup quarterback. I don't know if Tucker Gleason's going to play in this game. After seeing a pretty decent sample of John Allen Richter, I don't think it matters. This guy's a 65% completion, 8 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns, no picks, no turnover-worthy plays. He doesn't run as well as Gleason, I suppose, but I think he probably is just fine in this offense. Toledo's O-line is also bad, though. They're 124th in pass blocking, 65th in run blocking, so I guess slightly better than Bowling Green. The real way Toledo wins games right now is their defense. They're 18th overall, 13th in coverage, 47th against the run, and you basically just have to stop Harold Fannin, and if you do that, it's going to look pretty good for you. There are some questions. They did allow 8.1 yards per attempt to Caden Veldkamp of Western Kentucky, and since then, they've played Brett Gabbert, CJ Ugbana, and the backup for Northern Illinois, Josh Holst, so it's not great. But I still think Toledo's probably the better team in this matchup, just based on that defense. Bowling Green's defensive efficiency metrics have me pretty worried. And the only player they've really stopped has been Tommy Ulikowski for Kent State, and they still allowed 8.6 yards per carry to Kent State's running backs. I mean, I don't know. This is not looking good for Bowling Green's defense. They'll absolutely need Fannin and Basilek to keep them in this game.
2.5 at -110 is out there. If you're back in the Toledo side, that's the side I lean as well. Yeah.
I could maybe be talked into an over.
Yeah, so it's funny you said that. I was going to look at that. Let me pull up that number real quick before we go to the next game. Let's see. Toledo, 49.5 is out there.
Not to advocate for the over in every single game. I certainly will talk about some unders, but Toledo's going to play fast. Bowling Green, I think, is efficient enough to put up some points.
Well, we're going to a rivalry game now. There's a couple of these on the old schedule. This is more, I think, fun when it's in the Octagon of Doom on the hardwood, but that's not for a couple months. In the meantime, we'll go to football. We got Kansas and Kansas State. 9.5 is out there. 10 is out there. 10.5 is out there. So depending on the side you like, you have options. Kansas has been really disappointing this year. I know you're not the biggest Kansas State guy. What do you make of this matchup?
I'm interested in the Kansas side, which is, I guess, concerning. I think they're just the better value against the spread, but it's I've lost so much money betting this team. It's hard to keep a level head at times because it's honestly been Jalen Daniels in a lot of spots just throwing interceptions. He has 11 turnover-worthy plays, but 8 of them have been converted interceptions. At some point, that's not sustainable. But his underlying stuff's not great either. His completion percentage is down at 56.5%. That's bad. 7.2 yards per attempt. That's bad. And he's doing this on his own. The receivers have been fine. Luke Grimm has actually taken a step forward. You still have Neal in the backfield. The O-line is top 20 in both pass blocking and run blocking. There's absolutely no excuse for this team to be 2-5. No excuse. They're on the road. I mean, it's a small road trip in state. It is a rivalry, so it's still going to be hostile. But man, I just don't know what to say about this Kansas offense. They should score points in almost every matchup, and certainly in this one. Kansas State is 78th in total defense. They don't rush the passer. They're 115th. Not that that matters because Kansas' line is good. And they're 90th in coverage. They are 31st against the run, so they stood up semi-well there. And they have played some pretty good running teams. They've also played some air raid teams, so it is what it is. It kind of comes out in the wash. But yeah, and no one's hurt. I mean, this is not a situation where they've had players out for extended periods of time this year. They're just bad. Can Kansas actually exploit that and not make stupid mistakes? I don't know. You would think so. On the other side, I mean, Kansas actually is the more efficient offense than Kansas State. And I think people might be surprised by that, but the opponents have not really been all that great for Kansas State, especially earlier in the season. They've gotten better. They crushed West Virginia, which I think is the best one you can say, but Colorado absolutely diced up this team. Alan Bowman and Ollie Gordon were semi-efficient. They just don't play any defense. The BYU game, obviously, they got crushed. There was some weird stuff in that contest, but they're not really that efficient throwing the ball. 62% completion for Avery Johnson, 7.9 yards per attempt. He has 7 turnover-worthy plays. They make all their money running the ball, and they should be able to do that here, which is, again, another reason why I have some pause. You have the dual-headed backfield. You have Avery Johnson averaging 6 yards per carry. Kansas is 83rd in run defense. They basically returned everyone in their secondary this offseason, and then up front, they lost 2 of their starting defensive linemen, and it's been kind of a disaster replacing those guys. I don't know. Pace is bad. At a 10.5, I'm very interested in Kansas, just not sure I can play this team anymore.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I said, make sure you're shopping the hook in a game that I think could be pretty low scoring. So the value of the points is pretty good. I'm more. Go ahead.
I could see it going either way. Like both defenses are terrible, especially against the run for Kansas, and then both offenses can be explosive, and you can get short fields with turnovers.
It's a high variance game, but in games like that, I tend to take the points as well.
It's super slow though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It could be methodical. There's a lot of ways that Kansas doesn't even play that well, and they still keep it in range. It's been a tough backing though. I backed them early in the year a couple times. It's a great failure. But we move on. We got plenty more games to go. But listen up. Okay. One of the main things that we always talk about is the ability to get more. When you're talking about our Tails marketplace, if you're unfamiliar with that, maybe you haven't seen the show before, it's very simple. We have a marketplace with all sorts of creators. Me and Matt are both on it. We're dropping our plays in our Discords. We are breaking down matchups. You're getting closing line value on plays. You're getting all sorts of information. You get to sweat out the games. It's fantastic. If you have not tried it, you can obviously always sign up. We'd love to have you. But why not come in for a month or months for free? And that's what I'm showing you right now on the screen. This is super simple. The link is below. It's going to say get Tails for free. It's in the description. You go to this page. You have to go through this page. And you're going to see all these books. And you see claim offer. You don't have to claim them all. Claim the one or two or three or whatever you want that looks appealing to you. If you're in a state with Bet365, get the 5 and turn it into the $200 in bonus bets. If you want some of these other bonuses, click them. Once you do that, follow these instructions, you send us that email, you will get a month of your favorite Tails expert for free. You can choose Matt, you could choose me, you could choose someone else. If you do 2, you can get 2 months of someone, or you could do 1 and 1. Get both of us. Why not? A couple different, obviously, communities. Fantastic opportunity. A lot of people, of course, already done this. If you've already done it, then you know the drill. If you haven't, though, very simple, very easy. You go to this page, find the offer. You're getting free value. Makes all the difference. And college basketball will be here soon enough. You damn sure I'm going to be betting all sorts of teams that you never heard of. All right. Let's keep it going. Now we got to go to Buffalo. Why? I don't really know, but that's what it says. Buffalo and Ohio. Dear God. This is a genuine question. Where in the MAC is this? Is this mid-level, low-level, high-level? How bad are these teams?
This is pretty mid-level. We don't have to do this game. You can choose your own adventure, Ben.
No, I want to hear about it. I can't bet Buffalo, so I never break them down because I'm in New York. But I want to hear about Mr. Rourke's former stomping grounds.
Dang, that's sad, man. You can't bet Buffalo.
I can't bet Army.
Wow, that's at least you can bet other stuff. I can't bet anything in Wisconsin. Have to do it in greasy ways. I bet this game though. I did take Buffalo, and
at what? 6.5?
7.
You found a 7? Okay.
I did it on Sunday, so I mean it was.
Why you want to be in the Discord? That's neither here nor there. Go ahead.
I just put Kansas in the Discord. I had to do it.
Ooh.
They won't be a best bet, but I did just play it at 10. Anyway, I played Buffalo at 7 way back on Sunday. I don't think 6.5 is that bad. This is going to be, I think, a slower game, especially Buffalo will try to play fast. They're 23rd, but Ohio's doing a great job of limiting their opponents' plays. They're 103rd. So they do have some value of the points right away. Ohio, their quarterback situation, I think, is somewhat dicey. Navarro is a 65% completion, 7.3 yards per attempt, 10 turnover-worthy plays. His best asset, I think, is his mobility. He's very good at running the ball, but the foundation is so bad for this team. And it makes sense. They basically replaced everyone from last year's team. Honestly, I can't believe they've been as good as they've been. 107th in pass blocking, 106th in run blocking. It's a huge problem for this team. They just lost their stud, Anthony Tyus, at running back. He was the Northwestern transfer. He's out for the year. And if you look at this team's efficiency metrics, they're outside the top 100 in every single thing on offense except individual running back efficiency. That's yards after contact per attempt, forced missed tackles, and that is basically the Lone Ranger, Anthony Tyus. He's gone. You also are down your top 2 tackles for this team, so I don't think the offensive line is getting any better or really has any chance at it. You're facing a Buffalo defense that was actually towards the top of the MAC. This team is 49th overall in defensive efficiency. They are somewhat imbalanced. They're 9th in coverage, 97th against the run. And Ohio will try to run. I'm just not sure that they're going to have as much success now that their absolute wagon is out for the year. On the other side, Buffalo is going to be limited on offense. It just is what it is when you're starting CJ Agbana. I don't think there's much hope other than kind of greasing out your wins. 55% completion, 6.5 yards per attempt. He has 1 interception somehow on 6 turnover-worthy plays. The offensive line's also bad here. 100th in pass blocking, 101st in run blocking. That's still better than Ohio's. And then the biggest difference here is Ohio doesn't do anything well on defense. They're 87th overall, 99th in run defense, 88th in coverage. They've allowed some pretty horrifying numbers to some of the quarterbacks they faced this year. Gabbert just got him for 8.5 yards per attempt. And I mean, I do think the Buffalo games have been fairly close against better competition. They just lost to Western, I hate that they did this. They played, like the hardest non-con of all time, and then they've been dicing teams up in MAC play. They're actually one of the short teams that could win this conference right now. But then this team beat Toledo, lost to UConn in a blowout. That was a weird game. Beat Northern Illinois. That was when Northern Illinois was healthier. They smashed UMass. Ohio just lost to Miami, Ohio by 10. They beat Central Michigan, who's a corpse, by 2. The Akron game was actually much closer than the numbers indicate. So I think that spread, or that margin of victory, I suppose, isn't quite as telling. They won by 20, but Akron actually showed up, and then they played a relatively difficult non-con. So I think level of competition favors Buffalo. I don't like that Ohio's down their best player. If you can find anything close to a 7, I think it's fine.
I'm always down for some greasy action. For all of you that can bet it, hop on the Buffalo bandwagon. We're going to get back to the MAC in just 1 second. We'll sneak in an ACC game in Wake Forest and Stanford. Again, middling teams. I'm not a fan of Wake Forest. I'm not really a fan of Stanford either. Weird trip, obviously. 3-point spread. There's a 2.5 out there. What is the angle in this game?
I'm taking Wake Forest. I took a 2.5.
It's out there. You got to lay juice, but it's out there.
I took this at even money on Sunday. Again, you saw these Sunday bets, but Wake Forest has played a pretty difficult level of competition. Even their games that are supposed to be throwaways ended up being pretty hard this year. So they played at FCS, doesn't matter. Lost to Virginia by 1 point. Virginia is better than we thought. They got killed by Ole Miss. That is what it is. They lost to Louisiana by 3 in a game that was very, very close. But Louisiana is probably going to win the Sun Belt. They should be the favorite right now, especially after Texas State and James Madison took L's. They beat NC State. They lost to Clemson. That is what it is. And they beat a UConn team, which is much better than we thought. What has Stanford done? They have gotten annihilated in every single game since the Syracuse win, which is fine. I think they should have lost that game pretty clearly. Syracuse outgained them 6.2 yards per play to Stanford's 5. They just kind of gave Stanford plays right on their doorstep so Stanford could score. But I don't know what this team is doing at quarterback. They've now benched their top 2 guys. Elijah Brown, the freshman, played a lot in their last game. He looked horrendous. 59% completion, 5.1 yards per attempt, 3 turnover-worthy plays. He can't run, and he's not working with anything. The foundation is so bad regardless of who they trot out there. The O-line is 96th in pass blocking, 124th in run blocking. This unit is an absolute mess. I feel bad for Alec A. O'Maynor and some of these young receivers that have shown sparks, but this is a disaster waiting to happen. And then you look at what this defense does for Wake Forest. They're not good, but their D-line, I would say, is their strength. They're actually 73rd at defending the run. Stanford can't throw the ball. I'm not sure they can run either. They've had a lot of injuries to their running backs like Cedric Irvin. But, this is a mess. And then you look at Wake's offense. They're actually pretty good. They're 22nd in overall offensive efficiency, even with the competition. Bachmeier's been fine. 62% completion percentage, 7.4 yards per attempt, 7 turnover-worthy plays. They throw the ball a lot, 53% of pass rate, so that's fine. This team can run the ball, and they can run it down your throat. They're 28th in pass blocking, 16th in run blocking. Their run game is just fine, and you're facing a Stanford defense, which is 85th overall. They're extremely hurt. I have about 7 guys here flagged for injuries or have already been missing time. Clay Patterson at defensive tackle, Wilfredo Abar on the edge, Zarin Manley at corner, Jay Green at corner, Scotty Edwards at safety, Aaron Morris is a depth defensive back. This team is decimated by injury. They're horrifying on defense. The last 3 teams they faced, 10.6 yards per attempt to Kyron Drones, 10.4 yards per attempt to Riley Leonard, 11.9 yards per attempt to Kevin Jennings. Bachmeier is not those guys, but he's not as far off as we may think. They haven't allowed anything less than 8.1 yards per attempt to an opposing signal caller outside of the FCS game. Bachmeier should dice his team up. I can't believe this is within 3.
I'm taking Wake Forest on the show. Here we go.
Even if Bachmeier doesn't play well, their offensive line is basically a top 25 unit in the country, and Wake Forest can't do anything. Or excuse me, Stanford can't do anything.
I'm in. All right. Vamos. Yeah, let's do it. Now we're getting serious. This is the game I wanted to talk about. Akron. Akron's back. Akron has a win. They beat Colgate. Shocking. Eastern Michigan and Akron. This is as bad as it gets. I keep waiting for them to make any progress in any area. Maybe they are doing it. It's only a 3-point spread here. Can Akron get a rare FBS win?
I don't think so. I took Eastern Michigan.
Oh.
It sucks for Akron. They get like a transfer to every single year from a Power 5 school who's awesome, and then they immediately leave or something. They can't like continue to stack these guys. You know, like didn't Kanata Mumfield go here?
Yes.
Yeah, 2 years ago, and then he went to Pitt. Like that, losing Kanata Mumfield.
They had Irons. Remember when they had
Yeah, he tore his ACL last year in a game where I bet Akron.
Yeah.
I
bet Akron in every game. Akron last year, these are made up numbers. I'm pretty sure Akron conceded multiple onside kicks. They had the fumbles. How many games did they fumble away? Oh my God.
A lot. And we bet them a lot because I remember, as well as my friends like to remind me, our YouTube comments were very anti-Akron for the season, to put it kindly. But this is more pro Eastern Michigan than anti-Akron at this point, and it's largely injury-driven, especially on defense. This team has had a ton of players out throughout the season, missing a game here or there, and they're now finally healthy. The only player I have flagged right now is JT Killen, the transfer linebacker. Otherwise, everyone else should be back and should be fine for this defense, and they're particularly strong up front. They had 5 returning starters. They were a little weaker in their secondary, and somehow they've actually somewhat pieced that together, but this team is 14th in run defense and 18th in pass rush. That's how they're going to win games. Akron's 116th in pass blocking, 134th in run blocking. They're dead last, not kidding, the stone worst run blocking unit in the entire country. And they don't have any injuries. They returned 2 starters from last year's unit. Only one of them is playing. That's their center. Their replacements have been absolutely atrocious. Ben Finley might get killed in this game by Eastern Michigan's pass rush. This is the best pass rush in the MAC. And then on the other side, can we just have Cole Snyder take care of the ball well enough to get a win here? He's run hot, and there's no question about it. It's how they've won some games. Like, I think this is a middling MAC team. Right now, they're towards the top because Cole Snyder's 9 turnover-worthy plays have been converted to 2 interceptions. So those game-swinging plays have not been converted for Snyder, and it's led to extra wins. But this team, 65th in pass blocking, 58th in run blocking. They've had some injuries on the O-line, but these players are kind of just coming in and out of the lineup. But anyway, that's a much better foundation than what Akron had. And then on offense, we talked about some of the like the defense, they've also had some players come back from injury on offense, like JB Mitchell. He'd missed a large portion of the early part of this year. He's back now and he's playing. They had an NC State transfer, Delbert Mims at running back. He's been filling in for Dante McMillan. This offense has been pretty good. The only thing that worries me really is just Cole Snyder actually turning the ball over when he should instead of them getting dropped by defensive backs. But regardless, I'm not sure if Akron's going to be in position to stop that. They're 133rd on defense, 129th in run defense, 131st in coverage. They don't do anything well. They have a couple of players out, 4 in their secondary that have contributed at some point. One of their linebackers, Shaman Cooper. It's a mess for Akron, and I'm not sure even at home it's going to matter in this spot. Not that any road trip in the MAC, unless you're going to Buffalo, is like anything you're worried about.
When Akron plays Kent State, what do you think? Who's the worst of the worst, Kent State or Akron?
Kent State. Kent State is on their 4th string quarterback.
But he might be secretly good. Kent State.
That would be awesome.
Is getting 17.5 against Western Michigan, who has looked very impressive. We talk about it a lot. You can't really glean much from non-con in the MAC. Now, Kent State, you kind of could because they gave up 70 points in a half, which is just that is telling.
And they lost to St. Francis.
They did lose to St. Francis. Now, which one? I'm not sure. There are two St. Francis. PA. Okay. Well, there's a St. Francis in the city. I don't know if that makes it better or worse, but Kent State is catching a lot of points here. But you mentioned they don't have much of anything going on. What the hell is going on with this game?
I bet an under first and foremost, and I'm considering laying the points with Western Michigan. I think this might just be like an alt line spot. The big concern you have with Western Michigan is their defense, but that kind of mirrors the biggest concern with Kent State, their offense. So it's, I don't know, what's that stupid saying? The immovable force object.
Unstoppable force meets an immovable object.
Yeah, but this is an inverse because it's a very movable defense faces the, I don't know, impossible to run offense. But anyway, Western Michigan's 116th in total defense, 121st against the run, 96th in coverage. They've allowed a ton of points to a lot of teams recently. 24 to Akron, 41 to Buffalo. Ball State was a shootout. They allowed 42 points there. And then obviously their non-con didn't do them any favors because they played a bunch of hard teams. But even since they've gotten a conference, I don't think this defense is any good. But they might be good enough to just absolutely hold Kent State to a shutout. They're 129th in total offense. They moved on from Tommy Ulitkowski, their third stringer, to some guy I don't know, the fourth string quarterback who played horrible on a very small sample, which is concerning. I mean, you're the fourth stringer on Kent State. Tommy Ulitkowski had a 41% completion percentage. I mean, this is a complete disaster. Whatever quarterback they throw out there is going to be thrown into the fire. The O-line is horrible. 125th in pass blocking, 131st in run blocking. McCray is the only good player on the offense. I feel really bad for him. He should transfer because this is an untenable situation. And on defense, they're really hurt as well. Oliver Balatz, defensive tackle, out. Jair Rawlson, out at corner. Dallas Branch, out. Alex Branch, out. Those are three players in your defensive backfield. Western Michigan's going to do whatever they want. This is the best offense in the MAC. Hayden Wolf is a near 69% completion, 8.4 yards per attempt. He only has 3 turnover-worthy plays despite playing Wisconsin and Ohio State. The O-line is awesome. 21st in pass blocking, 17th in run blocking. Probably the best unit in the MAC. They go 3 deep at running back. Buckley's back healthy for this team. They also got back Kenneth Womack, their number 1 receiver. He was out the first month with a broken hand. Akron's defense, or Kent State's defense, as well as Akron's, I guess, just absolutely atrocious.
If Kent State and Akron combined and merged into one team, would they be any good or still horrible?
They would be very bad.
That's unfortunate. They really should allow that to happen. I could use a merge. I hope Kent State wins a game. It's not going to be this week, though. All right, we got a couple more. And again, if you have questions, I've already told you guys how to get in Discord. You can go back. The links are below. It's just getting the right numbers, being able to talk through spreads, anything like that. That's why we're here. But Jazzraz Bets on Twitter, Matt_Gajeski on Twitter, and the deals. Again, it's not just getting in Discord for free. You're getting things like Bet365. Let's talk about San Jose State and Fresno State. We'll go out west. We really haven't talked about these, Mountain West teams, things of that nature. 5-point spread. Fresno State's a team I haven't seen much of, to be honest. San Jose State I've seen too much of. What do you make of this situation?
I'm interested in San Jose State. What's the current number?
I could get you a 5.5.
I took a 6.5 on Sunday. I was curious if this had moved back or what the number would be.
Yeah, it's pretty flat 5. There's a couple 5.5s out there. There's a 4.5 out there, so it is continuing to drop.
Okay, that makes sense, I guess. I'm just not a buyer of Fresno State at this point. They have a lot of injuries. Malik Sherrod's been out. They've been down 2 of their top 4 receivers, Josiah Freeman, Cheaton James. Multiple injuries on their offensive line. One of their guards, and then one of their tackles, Jacob Spromer, I believe he actually got injured last year on this very week. He practiced for the first time this week. I don't think he plays, which obviously is a concern. If he does play, it would make their offensive line, I guess, a little better. But, I mean, first practice back, what's his conditioning like? Can he even get out there? And that matters because Fresno State is 120th in pass blocking And the best unit for San Jose State is their pass rush. They're 61st. This is actually a decent San Jose State defense. Both of these defenses are decent. But that's a big mismatch for this team. Fresno State down their top RB. Mikey Keene has taken a pretty big step backwards this year. I'm not sure if it's going to get any better for him. The efficiency metrics, 66.5% completion, 7.9 yards per attempt. He already has 12 turnover-worthy plays. I think it's kind of just the offensive line allowing him to get heated up a little bit, and then the turnover-worthy plays have been coming. Previously, this unit was very good for them in prior seasons. They're also taking him off the field in clear running situations. It's kind of been a mess. I think San Jose State's defense is decent. It's really hard to tell. Their schedule has been super easy. Air Force, Kennesaw State, Washington State in OT, a game they arguably should have won. Nevada, Colorado State, Wyoming. Like, this is a horrible schedule. So I want to short them at some point. But it's not like Fresno State has been that much better. After the loss to Michigan, they beat Sac State in a game that was fairly close. New Mexico State's a corpse. New Mexico's not great. That was a pretty back and forth game. UNLV, they got slaughtered. Washington State should have been worse than it was, 25-12. And then they played Nevada last week to a 3-point game. Both these teams, I guess to put it simply, have underachieved. And then you look to San Jose State's offense. They've gotten pretty good quarterback play. Emmett Brown hasn't always been on the field this year. So I guess always monitor his status. The O-line is bad for this team, 129th in pass blocking, 127th in run blocking, but they have good receivers. Lockhart and Nash form a nice tandem. Fresno State's defense doesn't scare me either. 82nd in run defense, 109th in pass rush, 48th in coverage is their best unit. They still have been diced up at times by opposing signal callers. Brendan Lewis got him for 8.3 yards per attempt last game. Haj Malik was at 11.4. So I just think this is too many points for teams that I largely have is pretty even in this spot. Efficiency metrics actually favor San Jose a bit. So if I'm going to get points without many edges, clearly in one direction, I'll just take the dog.
No pushback there. Yeah, like I said, I haven't seen a lot of Fresno State, and I actually watched when they played the FCS school. And it was not super impressive.
How did you pick that game?
Because I like Sac State. There's been some. They played I feel. Hold on. Now I gotta do something on the fly.
Sac State might be. There's rumors that they could jump up.
I could see that, but
isn't their coach in the FBS now? Their former coach, last year's coach, 2 years ago.
Yeah, he moved on.
He's at BYU or something, I think.
Yeah, Sac State. Yeah, they did. So they played both of these teams. I saw them play both of them. Actually, that was their first 2 games of the year. That's
tough for an FCS team.
But they play fine. They're a good team.
They're a good team. They're not a complete walkover FCS team.
No, certainly not. They would be favorite over Kent State, no doubt.
Also, there's 2 defensive backs for Fresno State, Reagan and Bracha, that have been out.
All right, we got a couple more here. Louisiana Monroe. I think maybe this is kind of a crazy statement, but I don't think so. Maybe up there with the biggest surprises in the entire country this year, record-wise. They have been. I mean, I think their win total was either 1.5 or 2.5. And they're doing things. Now, this is a huge test, 7.5-point favorite, dog on the road against South Alabama, but they have stuff to play for. Is this team just like slightly improved, or are they actually a serious threat?
I don't think I would put them in the serious threat category. And I'm honestly considering South Alabama in this spot. This team, Louisiana Monroe, has been decent. And I think they've been lucky to come away with some of their wins that they've gotten, because the underlying stuff is still pretty bad for this team. Obviously, the quarterback change has given them a spark going to Armenta. He hasn't been that much better than General Booty, though. He has a sub 60% completion, 7.8 yards per attempt. He already has 5 turnover-worthy plays. He's largely played in 3 games this year, 2 of which have been converted to picks. He does look like he can run, which is nice because the O-line is going to allow pressure. They are 91st in pass blocking, 128th in run blocking. They're also down 2 starters in the offensive line right now, Sam Carson and Elijah Fisher. That's one of your tackles and one of your guards. I'm not sure if it matters. South Alabama's defense has been pretty bad, and they're pretty bad across the board. Their best unit is their pass rush, so perhaps that gets home, but it's still only 57th, run defense 61st in coverage. They've been an absolute sieve. So that's a big problem. On the other side, I'm just not sure that Louisiana Monroe could stop South Alabama either. Their defense has been the strength of their team, but we're talking 91st on defense overall versus 125th on offense. And South Alabama's offense has been pretty explosive at times. Gio Lopez is 6.1 yards per carry. He's run hot, though. 7 turnover-worthy plays, 1 interception. The O-line here's a little better, 73rd in run blocking, 105th. They're 73rd in pass blocking, 105th in run blocking. But they have good weapons. Pritchett's awesome for this team. It's a tough game to handicap. I think right now I'm at a South Alabama or pass, but this is probably going to be a pass for me. You just have so many weird data points with Louisiana Monroe. Like their win over Troy, they had a 16% post-game win expectancy, and that's Troy. James Madison, they had a 20% post-game win expectancy. Southern Miss, they allowed 21 points to. They still won 38-21. But, I mean, Southern Miss should be, like, getting shut out by teams. That team is so bad.
They are bad.
South Alabama has been at least, competitive with these teams. And common opponent, they just beat Troy 25-9. So, it's a lot of points. I don't think I'll play it, but it's South Alabama or pass.
I'm not playing it at 7.5. I'll tell you that much. No way.
Same.
So keep
Maybe
that in
live.
mind. Yeah, maybe live. I watch enough Louisiana Monroe football. True story. One time, it had to be maybe like 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. I bet in the opening game of the season, Louisiana Monroe money line against Oklahoma.
I thought you were going to say against Alabama.
No, against Oklahoma. And they lost by like 40. And that set the tone for the rest of my life. Yeah. They had a sick quarterback at the time. I think his name was Browning. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. None of this is relevant. We're skipping the Temple game. I can't talk about that. I want to talk about Wyoming. Can we talk about Wyoming?
We can skip to any game you want.
We're going to Wyoming. I want to hear your thoughts about this game because Utah State is extra bad. How they lost that game last week, it low-key one of the craziest games I've ever seen. Bananas. Now they got to go up to Laramie. Wyoming stinks. The spread's flipped a little bit. Wyoming's a slight dog, and I'll be honest, I kind of lean with the Cowboys.
I'm surprised.
So am I.
I actually thought the first spread was sufficient, so I haven't even updated the spreads as of this morning. But last I had on my sheet was the other way, so I don't know. That's weird. I'll have to dive in and see if anyone's been ruled out. But there's a lot of players out on Utah State, especially on defense.
Their defense is atrocious.
Yeah, and half their starters are hurt. Avante Dickerson also only played 10 snaps in their last game at corner. Obviously, you won't have great reporting on Utah State, but, he's not normally playing 10 snaps. What happened? Clyde Washington's been out, linebacker. Blaine Spires, defensive tackle. Maceo Williams, defensive tackle. Miguel Jackson, defensive tackle. Enoka Migao, edge. As you can see, this team is 132nd in run defense. I just named 4 players from that unit that are gone. Wyoming is passing 46% of the time. I think that's because they've been getting murdered in some games. I still believe, even with the coaching changes this offseason, that they would love to run the ball if they can. They have a million injuries at running back, Harrison Whaley, Dwayne McNeely, DJ Jones. I don't think it matters. Put anyone out there with a pulse, and you should be able to run on Utah State, given the current complexion of their defense. They made a change at quarterback to Caden Anderson. I don't know what this is going to mean. Svoboda was so bad that I don't think it could be worse. So at the very least, I think you're neutral. And so Svoboda, he should be playing with Utah Tech next year or something because the O-line's been decent. 77th in pass blocking, 47th in run blocking. Like, how is this team losing so badly to teams? And on defense, they're 64th. I just don't have the answers, man. I can't say that I've watched a ton of Wyoming aside from the Arizona State game, so I don't have a lot of the context that I normally get from just watching games. But the efficiency metrics are good. If you bring Svoboda out of the equation and get, even like a 2% edge to Caden Anderson, this should be better. Utah State is pretty decent on offense. They're 83rd overall, but again, they're not getting any favors. Wyoming's defense has been fine. We thought that coming into the year. They're down their left tackle, Cole Motes. That maybe hurts their offensive line numbers. 53rd in pass blocking, 98th in run blocking. They do have some good skill position players. That's about the best thing I can say for Utah State. If they get up in this game early, it might be hard for Wyoming to climb back as it has been every single game. And Utah State could do that. But I mean, their defense is horrible. I think this game should probably be a pick 'em, which is at this point giving you some value on Wyoming, I suppose.
I mean, I can't get over. So Utah State points allowed.
This
They
is going to
allowed
be good.
14 points to Robert Morris to open the year. They allowed 48 to USC. That's not even that bad. 38 to Utah.
That was Isaac Wilson's first start.
Yeah. 45 to Temple. 62 to Boise. 50 to UNLV. And another 50 to New Mexico last week. I mean, I honestly think that Wyoming, who has no offense, is going to just run through them.
They should be able to run the ball.
They can't stop anybody. And you mentioned should be able to run the ball. Well, last week, New Mexico, 280 yards rushing. I mean,
Dampier was at 7 yards per carry. Eli Sanders, 5.4. Those are just the 2-ball carries. You go back a week further, Jaden Thomas, 8.2. Genty's, so I don't know if that matters. Micah Bernard, 7.2. Woody Mark, 7.9. The run defenses. I mean, we talked about this. They're down 4 starters from that unit. I don't know who's playing right now for their defensive line.
New Mexico had 4 guys with 7 or more carries, and they all averaged over 5 yards per carry. All 4 of them. So
yeah, it's not good.
It's not good. It's not good. I'll leave it at that. Also, again, nobody cares about this, but just to prove I'm not crazy. August 31st, 2013, Oklahoma won 34-0 against Louisiana Monroe, and Colton Browning, whoever the hell that was the Louisiana Monroe quarterback. That was an expensive day. And Oklahoma's quarterback was Trevor Knight. Remember him?
Vaguely. These are names I haven't heard in a long time.
Blake Bell, the Belldozer, was there.
I was a sophomore in college.
Yeah, Jalen Saunders, Damian Williams was on.
What was Wisconsin doing that year? They were pretty good, I think. That was after the Russell Wilson years, maybe the first or second year without him.
Yeah,
they were much better. They were playing like Ohio State close at the time.
Wow, they played UMass.
I wouldn't have remembered that. I was drinking a lot in my college.
You should have been at that game. They had Joel Stave.
I was probably drinking with my friends.
Yeah. So was I probably watching my team get slaughtered. All right. We have done it, friends. We have arrived at mercifully. We've gone through a lot of games. Let's recap some of them again. Plenty more in Discord. You guys know how we do it. Get involved. Use those links. It's for you guys. We want you to get free stuff. We want to build the community. We want these books to give the bonus bets because that's what it's all about. You build the bankroll, you get access. It's a win-win for everybody. Let's get into it, though. You mentioned a lot of games here. If you're building out a card, what are you thinking about in terms of priorities?
My favorite one is Wake Forest. If you can find anything near a 3, I think that's fine. I took a 2.5, 3, completely okay with. I think alt lines are in play for this, as they have been in most Stanford games this year. They're on their 3rd-string quarterback. Their defense is a complete mess. They have injuries all over the place. Wake Forest actually has pretty good underlying metrics. They just have kind of faced the cream of the crop so far. My second one is going to be the under in Kent State, Western Michigan. I took this at 60. It has not moved far enough where I'd be backing away for this. Even at a 59.5, you're looking at like a final score that needs to be 38 to like 24 in order to go over this. So you're telling me based on the spread, Kent State scoring over 20 points in this game. I think Kent State is live to get shut out. The only concern I really have is Western Michigan, who has an awesome offense, like doing this by themselves, but you're getting a lot of wiggle room either way. And Kent State's on their 4th-string quarterback. So I'll happily take an under in this spot. Pace is not great. This one, I think it's right up there with Wake Forest. I won't rank them.
I'm going to Wyoming. I'm doing it. I don't really care. You can just take even money. You can take 1.5. It's just a short of Utah State. This team is just bad. I can't say anything else. I really don't see it. And then I'm gonna join you probably on San Jose State. It's come down. You got a better number than me, but we could still shop this and still get a good number. And that's a short of Fresno State. Not really sold on them. I've seen San Jose State a little bit. It's bad versus bad, so there's a lot of variance in games like that. But I think it's a nice little 4-pack for us. You pair that with some of the marquee games like SMU. we got ourselves a little week here.
It's going to be a good one. I also have Buffalo +7.
Yes.
Eastern Michigan -3 if you wanted some secondary plays here too. But I'm excited. Get
on
ready
that.
for the Boise UNLV game, the game of the week. They should do a Friday night game day. What is this Washington, Indiana game?
I know.
LSU's playing A&M for
I
first
know.
place in the SEC, and we're going to Indiana. No shame to Indiana. But
shame. It's shameful stuff. They should be in Akron, honestly.
this is more a shame to Washington. Like, I don't know. I guess the game's more competitive because your backup quarterback is playing for Indiana. What are we doing?
What are we doing? What are we doing, friends? But appreciate you guys tuning in as always. You guys know the drill. Let's build betting you bigger and bigger, and let's just keep cashing some tickets. It's a real greasy week, but that's how we like it. We're going to bounce it out here again from me, from Matt, and for everyone at Odd Chopper. Get involved. We'll see you in Discord. Say hello when you join, by the way. A lot of new faces. We want to make sure we introduce you to all the members. And on that note, good luck and enjoy the games. We'll see you next week.